What's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to create a remix of a track from the 80s. And this will be a beginner tutorial. And I'm also giving away this FLP for free. So you can download it. The link is in the description. And you can see how I've created all the elements yourself. So let's dive right in. So at first I'm going to add a kick. And in this case I'm using a kick from the Afro House Chemistry Producer Bundle. And I'm using kick 14. This one, which already contains some transients in the beginning of the sample. So then I open up the channel rack and then I add a kick right here. And I'm drawing it in at a 4x4 rhythm. So I select it, Ctrl C, Ctrl B. So this is the kick rhythm. So very simple, and now we're gonna add more drum layers. So in this case I started up with some simple percussion loops from the Chemistry Producer Bundle. So let's enable percussion 14. Simple tambourine layer, then we're adding a shaker. And then we're adding another top loop to make sure it sounds full. So we're already adding some percussions using this top loop. It makes it way easier in the end. So then we're adding more and more percussion. So for example, I'm using percussion 40. So this one, which is a simple top. So opening up the channel rack, adding it right here. So very simple. And then we're adding a head sample. So for example, this one, which is a very simple hi-hat. And we're adding this rhythm. And in this case, we're playing around with the velocity control. And we're making sure we're following this pattern. So the first one is more quiet, loud, quiet, loud. And then we're pressing Option R and we're randomizing it again to make it sound more human. So let's have a listen when we play those layers together. So I'm really liking this one so far, but we're still not done yet. So in this case, we're adding a clap. And this clap already contains some reverb, so I think that's really cool. And we're adding this main rhythm, which is one of my favorite rhythms for adding to Afro House. So this one definitely doesn't need to be a main element, but we can use it to keep it interesting. And now we're using another layers. So in this case, percussion 38. So this one, and we're adding it right here. So double it up. So it's still very simple. Again, I'm playing around with the velocity. So we just want to prevent it from sounding sequenced. So if you're kind of creating that organic house sound, you definitely have to make sure you add those techniques. So just randomize it, play around with different levels of volumes. And by doing this, you should be able to achieve that sound. So the next layer, which we are going to add, is a piano layer. And this one is used in a lot of those tracks, but I'm going to use it anyway. So I'm using the Piano V from Maturia, which is an awesome plugin. And I'm using the Dr. Crucial preset. This one sounds like this. Sounds very soft. And I think very plucky in this case. And I'm adding this chord progression in C sharp major. With a very typical piano. I think it sounds very unique and I think it sounds very soft and is a great fit for this track. So by applying the same elements and just picking slightly different sounds, you can create something unique and very cool. Okay, so around the next step is copying the bass line. So in this case, I'm going to copy the root notes. I'm pressing Ctrl C if you're using Windows. So in this case, I'm using the June 6 V, also from Maturia. And I'm going to use this as a bass element. So open it up, Ctrl V. I'm going to make sure I play it in the right key. So this one contains too much low frequencies. This one. So I'm going to pick C3. But I'm not done yet, so I'm gonna use this chord progression again. And I'm gonna pick a square bass. I'm gonna also play it in C right here. But in some of the cases you don't like the root notes, and we can apply a simple trick. Because I'm not sure about those ones, I'm gonna pitch them down 1 octave. So I'm selecting them and I'm pressing Command, arrow down. So I'm adding some more deep and low frequencies. And I think switching it up like this just sounds so much better. And I'm doing the exact same thing for the space bass. So this is exactly what I'm looking for, and I think right now it already sounds so good. But right now we're still missing those frequencies from, for example, 20 to 100 hertz. And I don't want to add another bass line, so I just want to make sure I add a sub bass. So in this case, I'm using Serum. I'm just using this element. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. I'm making sure I'm playing it in this note right here. So let's have a listen. So very simple layer, and I'm making sure the low frequencies just sound good and are very present in the mix. So right now I'm still thinking about expanding all the melodies, but I just want to keep it simple, especially for a beginner tutorial. So in this case, I've added a pad, and a pad is a very simple element which can contain some mid, low and high frequencies. So there are a lot of ways how to apply this element. So in this case, I've used this preset. Very simple one, and I'm using the exact same chords as I've added for the piano. Still in the background. And I'm adding some more reverb, I'm adding some more ambience, and I think this is what this track needed. So right now, let's add some more general Afro House elements. So we're adding this one, using the Pluck Electric from my upcoming preset pack. This one sounds like this, which already contains some reverb and delay, so ready to use. So let's have a listen. And that's basically the foundation for this track. But I still want to add a main element without reusing this Pluck again. So I'm adding another synth, or in this case a lead, which sounds like this. Which is not that common for Afro House, but I think in this case it's a great fit. So when we use this layer in the main part of this track, I think it's a great addition to the Pluck, make it more interesting. And because it just contains a lot of high frequencies, you don't have to mix it, just level it, and it already sounds good. But it still needs some processing. So let me show you how to process a main lead like this. So at first you remove the frequencies which you don't need and reduce some frequencies. So in this case, I've used a low cut around 140 hertz, and I'm reducing some frequencies right here, around 330 hertz. And in this case, I want to make sure this synth comes through. So I'm boosting some of the high frequencies. So I'm boosting around 2 dB. So then I'm using a compressor because it's a very loud synth and I want to make sure it sounds somehow flat and it sounds very stable. So I've applied this compressor. Then I'm using a Saturn 2 with some saturation to make sure it sounds full. And then I'm using Golfos, which is an AI EQ, and I'm using this on almost all of my melody layers. So it already sounds very good and it sounds very natural. And then I want to make sure it sounds very wide. And this is a question which I get a lot. So in most of the cases, I'm just using the Ozone 9 imager or maybe Ozone 10 imager. And then I'm using a preset, which is called the Enhance Space. And then I'm playing around the parameters, so making sure the bandwidth 4, which is from 6K to around 20K hertz, I'm spreading this stereo image. And you can simply do this by adjusting the bandwidth. And you could also stereoize a synth, but in this case, there is already a chorus use. So I'm not stereoizing it again. So I'm just boosting those frequencies. Because it's a main synth, you want to make sure it blends very well together with the kick. And the kick is a main sound and it has a very big amplitude. So you basically want to sidechain the main lead. So in this case, I think it sounds very good. And I've achieved this by using the Kickstar 2, but I'm using the band frequency. So the frequencies below 2000 hertz are sidechained. And because the high frequencies aren't colliding with the kick, for example, you just don't need to sidechain those frequencies. So I'm just sidechaining the low frequencies from the kick. But this is how it sounds without the effects. Right now I'm adding all of the effects. So in this case, I found it was very hard to mix this element, but I think I've achieved a decent sound. And because it's not very common to Afro House, it maybe sounds weird, but somehow I think it sounds also original. So I'm very satisfied with the result. So let me show you the main part of the track, and I hope I don't get copyright strike. As you can hear, I've produced some high frequencies on the kick. Hold up. Opening up the cutter filter for the pluck. Reverse sound right here. So that's it guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to check out the full remix, the link is in the description. It's on my second channel, which is called 7th. So maybe you have any submissions, you've created another amazing Afro House remix, make sure to send it over. And there is a high chance I will upload it to the channel. So if you have any questions about this project, make sure to drop them in the comments. And I hope you have an amazing day, create some awesome tracks, and I hope to see you next week.